Oh, that's so good.
Welcome to Holly's Pandorium, featuring your host, psychic medium Holly Jordan.
We're back. Hi, it's Holly, and I have a new guest with me today that I have never interviewed before, so I have not heard her stories. I am very excited. She does some really cool stuff, and I can't wait to talk to her about these things. This is Kathleen Tedder. Thank you for being here today, Kathleen. How are you doing?
Thank you, Holly. I'm doing excellent. Better than excellent. I had a really good day yesterday at the Great Florida BigFoot Conference. I had a blast there. Yeah, David Paulides,
Nice.
Cliff Barackman, Scott Nelson, RPG, a whole bunch of people, and a lot of my friends were there. So it was so much fun. So
That's
I'm all pumped up
wonderful.
still from that.
I bet. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. That sounds like a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it's my third year so that I've gotten
Is
to go.
it? Great. So do you have a booth there? Do you talk to people about Bigfoot, or what do you do when you go there?
I know a lot of the people that have the research groups here in Florida, and they're there. So I wander around mostly and say hi and get pictures with all the famous ones. all the speakers. I do, and then I put them out on Facebook and make all kinds of videos with them and have fun with it. But yeah, a lot of my friends were there. It was really wonderful. It was the biggest crowd I've seen there yet out of the 3 years I've been there. So it was really, really successful. And
wow,
yeah, it was a blast. And of course, you learn new things. And most people know of David Paulides, right? Missing 411.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I brought home a few hundred souvenirs. I'll show you this one real quick because this is what I'm so proud of.
Okay.
That's my souvenir. It's not Bigfoot, but I couldn't resist it.
So for people listening, she has got a framed piece of artwork that looks like a gray kind of, but greenish gray. It's beautiful.
Yes,
that's a really beautiful piece of art. So did you meet the artist?
Yes, I did. It was a very sweet gentleman. Him and his wife make the frames, and he does the art. And they put them together, and it was reasonable. It wasn't outrageous, and it just touched my heart. I got little things with Bigfoot. Little things for souvenirs.
Sure.
That just touched my heart, and he looks like he belongs here. So.
I get that. I'm funny about artwork that way too. It has to kind of speak to me in a way, and just kind of, it's like it grabs my attention. It's like, oh, you're supposed to come home with me. I know you are. Yeah, it's funny.
That's what I said.
It's funny how we connect with objects like that. Yeah,
I was with a friend who's had experiences with the Zetas as well, and grays of different. She's had some different than I have actually, but anyway, she was with me when I saw that, and we started to walk by, and both of us just kind of stopped, and I backed up and I said, I have to look at that again, and the gentleman said $20. I went, what? You're kidding?
Wow.
To me, it's well worth a lot more than that. So anyway, I grabbed that up. Very happy.
I don't blame you. So I have to ask the question. So are you an experiencer of Bigfoot, or are you a curiouser? What are you?
I am an experiencer of Bigfoot face to face. And in Florida, in the last couple of years, I've been introduced to 3 different clans. They've all welcomed me. So I haven't seen the other 2 clans, but I have seen one lady who came and sat with me on a bench, and while I was meditating, and she told me, don't open your eyes. And I didn't. And somehow I think that because I didn't, I think that she trusted me. So she and I ended up having a telepathic conversation for a few minutes, and then I felt her get up and leave, but I kept my eyes closed because I was afraid, that it would kind of ruin our trust, so to speak. So I kept my eyes closed, and then I kept hiking through this park for several days. And one day she fell in beside me and hiked with me. And that was the first time I got to see her. And to me, she was beautiful. And she had a baby on her shoulder, a little baby girl. And I was so excited and so thrilled that she would trust me to show me this baby, anyway, we became friends. And then she told me she was going to be moving away from that area. And then the same week that she told me that, during that week, I'd gotten to see her two sons that were peeking at me from behind a tree about 35, 40 feet away from me. And then the last time I was in the park, it was like 2 weeks before two big bad hurricanes hit here in Florida.
Okay.
And I was getting ready to be done. I'd done my hike, and I didn't see anybody, and it was, I was getting over, and I stepped in this one place, and I could hear like a humming sound, like electrical humming, and my hair stood up on my body, and I kind of looked just kind of looked over that way for some reason, and I saw the father. The father was absolutely half solid, and he had one of his hands up like this, and the other half was like pixelated, and he was coming out of the tree. He was connected to the tree, like a tree portal kind of thing. And I was shocked, and I just was froze. And he was a big guy. He was no threat. I never felt any fear from any of them or any experiences I've had. But it was just amazing. I did not really know that they could cloak. I mean, I hadn't seen it. I've been hearing a little bit about cloaking and things. But to actually see him be half solid and half invisible, so to speak, I called it pixelated because it was like a million little X's, and then it was like clear, like the Predator, like they say the Predator. It was very, very unique. Right. And then I could see my car, so I wasn't far from my car, and went ahead and done the 4 miles that day, I believe. And so anyway, I was almost out of the park when. And I felt with his hand up, and I couldn't really see his face real clear, but I think he was greeting me and saying hello to me. And then the hurricanes hit. And then when I went back, the park was closed for 6 months. So I couldn't get back in. But I moved to Mount Dora after that, and which is 2 hours away from there. And I was driving on this one highway, 471, near Highway 50, if anybody is from this area that knows that area. And I got a telepathic message. The lady that I had met popped right into my head while I'm driving down the road. And it was welcome. And she was smiling at me. And she had two females with her. And during our little talks, I told her, I said, I know that you can make medicine. Would you be interested in teaching me how to make medicine? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I'll teach you something, in exchange, something. She hasn't asked me for anything yet. So I'm thinking the two ladies that were with her were the healers or the medicine people in her clan. And I really felt that way. And I was so excited. I just went, as soon as she said welcome and popped into my head, I said, hello. And then I said, I love you. It was so funny. It just automatically popped right out. And I was just thrilled that I hadn't lost that connection at all. She just moved away, but we're still connected.
Nice.
So I'm very thrilled about that.
How exciting.
Yeah, it is. They're very amazing, amazing beings. I'm overwhelmed at what they can do. And since that episode happened, two other clans going on that same road popped into my head at different times and said, welcome. And that's the word they always come at me with right away, is welcome.
Wow.
I could see them in my mind's eye, but I didn't get to actually see them physically. But when they said that, for some reason, I automatically looked to the forest, and I could see the trees down where they had broken the trees. So I knew that when they popped into my head, they were saying, come in here and you can meet us, kind of, Wow. But I'm driving on the road and there's nowhere to park. So I couldn't, I wanted to so bad. I would have hiked right in there. I bet. But anyway, so the other two clans have welcomed me, and I know where they are. And I'm hoping I have three other male friends that want to go in there, that they know of a spot also in that area. It's called the Green Swamp area around here. And so they're willing to take me in there. And one's a Marine, one's a Ranger. I mean, I'd have all the protection in the world if I needed it. But
Right.
they want to experience that with me. So at some point, we're going to get together and go in and see what goes, what comes of it.
Right.
I'll use my psychic abilities, and they can protect and get what information they need. So
Right.
I'm very excited about that. It's that's going to happen.
I would be too. That sounds
Yeah.
incredible. Absolutely.
Yes.
So how long have you been working on these relationships?
It started at the beginning, I believe, around 2024, for when I met the first one, the lady that sat with me. I had found a place to hike, and I was hiking. And when I say hiking, I'm fast walking for the whole 2 miles or 4 miles, whichever I do. And the one time that I decided to take my shoes off and sit on the wooden bench, put my feet on the ground, and just sit and meditate, and when I'm hiking, I'm also praying. And, I'm praying, and sometimes I'm praying out loud. And I actually think she might have heard me and kind of connected with me that way. That's kind of something I think about, because nobody was ever in this park. It was a very quiet little park. Sometimes on the weekends, a few people would walk their dogs there, but hardly anybody ever there. So I didn't feel bad talking to myself walking in the woods, and talking to God.
There's no one there to judge you and think you're cuckoo talking to yourself.
Yeah. So
awesome.
So I've had that experience, just very recent. But I will tell you, when I was 4, I lived in Alaska, and our kitchen door had the top half that would open, and there was no screen on it. It was just open, to the fresh air. And I was sitting at the table looking out over where the window was, or the door was open, and I could see our cherry tree. And it was about, I'm going to say, just 10 feet outside the door, probably. It wasn't very far. And I'm sitting at the table playing with things, and I look up and I see a man bear. To me, I saw a man bear, and I go running outside to go give him a hug, because I loved animals even then. And I go running out the door. The door is open, and I get about 3 steps out, and I feel my father grab me by the seat of the pants and pull me back into the house and slam the door. I said, but Dad, he smiled at me. I was, I hug. I wanted to hug him. And then many years later, it was never spoken of, but many years later, when I'm about 9, I'm visiting my father in Eugene, Oregon. And he says, we're going somewhere, hop in the car. So he and I go about 30 minutes out of Eugene. So I don't know where this is, to be honest with you, but he takes me to this, like a ranch, and it's down this long road, and it's way out into the woods. And there's a huge metal, like a warehouse, and it had all these huge chains and locks on the door. And this gentleman comes up, and he unlocks it. And when we go inside, it's I can't even believe this is real. But when I was 9, I'm 75 now. Think about how many years ago that was. He had a museum. He had a Sasquatch museum. And he also had giant bones and giant things in there. And my father took him aside and was talking to him about our experience, and didn't want me to hear.
Right.
And I was fascinated, because there was about a 9-foot Sasquatch. Sadly, I think it might have been taxidermied. I think it might have been a real Sasquatch, but it was about 9 foot. And I just couldn't leave it alone. I was seeing my man bear all over again, so I'm there, and then my dad's off talking to the gentleman. So that was my confirmation from my dad that what I saw, was real. And I don't know how my father found this gentleman, or if he knew him already, or I don't know, but he took me, and that was my confirmation. I was amazed, I just amazed that my memory of the Sasquatch did look so much like this 9-foot taxidermied Bigfoot that was locked up, like I said, behind many big chains. This man had to unlock 2 or 3 chains to let us in. Very private, and I wish I knew where it was, but I don't. My father's passed.
No kidding. I was just going to ask you, do you remember anything about it? Because I lived in that area, and that doesn't sound like anything I've heard of.
Some people say there was an older museum near Bend uh, there's another little town out that way. Anyway, out a little bit eastern Oregon. I don't know. It was. I'm feeling like we were only in the car about 30 minutes at the most, going and coming.
Okay.
So I don't know. I just have no idea. I would love to know who inherited that museum from the elderly father. So yeah, and if the stuff is still intact, or if the government came in and took it away, because there were giant bones, there was all kinds of things. Right. This man was really collecting, and did a really good. So that was my love. That's been my love all my life. And everywhere I've lived in 8 different states, most of them out west. And everywhere I've lived, I've had some kind of an experience, but never full telepathy until 2024 with this lady. And since then, it's just opened up all over the place. I mean, I really am. I'm telepathic with all kinds of things now. Trees, a bee, just different plants, different things. And I'm just amazed. Right. And I feel very blessed to have that gift. So, but Sasquatch have my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. You list yourself as a remote viewer. That start for you?
Yes, my last ex-boyfriend was military, Marine, and as well as Army, both, and did 2 terms in the war. And he's an author and a genius, very bright, and he was high security, like. To be able to do presidents. He did President Clinton's security at some point. Anyway, he took Major Ed Dames remote viewing classes twice, and he taught me. So I learned from a student of Major Ed Dames, and for 5 years we were together, and for 5 years he would use my skills. And he had a friend who would ask him to have me and him, and then we'd get a third person to sort of triangulate things. And sure, he would ask us certain questions. I'm going to give you a city, or here's one that was a positive in those years. It was near Christmas time, and a little boy was kidnapped. And he said, what do you feel? It's in your area. It's in Sacramento. What do you feel? So we took off driving one night, and 40 minutes up the road, we could be on top of a mountain from where we were. And we wanted to see the sunset. So we took off and headed up this mountain. And while we're going, we're all being quiet, and we're all kind of feeling out for this missing boy. You know what I'm saying? And
sure.
I drove past this one mansion, this gated house. And I stopped the car. I was the driver, and I stopped the car, and I said, that boy is in there. And Joanne in the back, she's was a psychic a bit too. And she said, I think so too. I can see that. And then John, I don't know what he got. He had psychic abilities as well. And I don't know what he got, but John got on the phone with this gentleman, and we went on up the mountain. We got the address, and then we went on up the mountain and watched the sun go down. And then when we came back on the way down, the road was blocked off. There was helicopters, there was SWAT teams, and in the paper the next day, they found a little boy in a judge's basement. So somehow we helped with that. And that's one of my successes that I'm very pleased about.
That's fantastic.
And, yeah. So, but this gentleman, Mike, who was head of an FBI, I don't know what city, what state, I really don't, but he ran one of the FBI, places. And he would ask John all the time to ask me, what do I see on such and such? What, just different questions. And John would do his report, I would do my report, and Joanne would do her report, and none of us would tell each other. We just do the reports, give them to John. Right. John would give them to Mike. Well, John would work them. He could put the reports together in a professional way because he had been a policeman at some point. And anyway, high security, so he would put the reports together and then send them to Mike. And we did that for 5 years. So he must have liked our work. He was forever asking us for more things, So
Nice.
yeah, so that's how I learned that. But I realized when I did learn it, honey, I realized I was doing this when I was having psychic readings, when I was doing readings for people over the internet. I was
Right.
actually remote
Right.
viewing them in their space wherever they were,
Right.
and so I had the skill. I just didn't have some of the basics, some of the training to go with it. So I'm very
Right.
blessed that I can do it. I can go off planet. I went on to 3AI Atlas. I can pretty much do lots of things with the remote viewing, which I do, but now just for myself, not for any reason. But
I do find that fascinating as a psychic. People don't realize how frequently they're using remote viewing, doing psychic readings, that they're
right,
accessing
right,
information at a distance without realizing it. When I say distance, I want to speak in general terms, because it can be the past distance, it can be the present
right.
distance, or the future distance. That there's information in different things, and it's not linear. It's
No,
wherever
it's not.
you think about, that's where it is. And so it basic to me, it feels, and it maybe feel differently, but I feel like the information is right in front of me. I feel very connected to whatever's going on. And so to me, there is no space between us. I feel like I'm right
Right.
there. Yeah,
That's
I
kind
do
of
a
the
lot
way
of
I
readings.
feel too.
Yeah, I've done a lot of readings in Europe and other areas in Africa and so on. And I feel like I'm right there. Whoever I'm reading for,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. I'm right there. I just feel like I'm with that person.
Uh, in my 50s, I took care of my mother for 15 years. She had 3 different cancers. And in my 50s, because
Oh,
I was homebound with my mother, she helped me open a psychic site. It was under a site called kundalinitantra.com, which is still up. The site is up, but I don't know. I haven't opened up. It was only supposed to be for 4 or 5 years that I had the site. But so anyway, I did readings. But what I did is I was reading people's spirit guides because people wanted to know who's around them, what's around
right.
them and their ancestors. And one of my blessings was a lady named Carolyn, from somewhere in Arizona. And she was full native, but I didn't see her, so I didn't know that exactly. And her husband worked at Area 51. And she kept trying
Oh,
to
fun.
tell me, now this was in my 50s. I didn't know about Area 51. I didn't know a lot of things, even
Okay.
though I'm an experiencer with ET and have had abductions and such. I didn't have any idea, but she was trying to tell me that her husband had to be dropped off, and then he would take a bus, and then he would go on the bus to a certain place, and then they would go by airplane to Area 51, and then he would have to come back and get on the bus. And so it was really, she was letting me know about the security of the base, and she was trying her best to not say the word alien or ET or whatever, but she was trying to wake me up, and I didn't get it
Sure.
then. I didn't get it for a long time until,
I love it.
much later when I realized what Area 60 or 51 really was, you know.
Sure.
But
Right.
I read her spirit guides, and she told me, she says, I tried to block you. She says, I just wanted to see what you could do. And one of her
Right.
ancestors, well, I saw several of them that were there, and I told her all of her spirit guides. And one of her ancestors was a female, like maybe a great grandmother. And I came up with her name in Native. And I don't speak Native. I don't have Native.
Right.
I mean, I have Native
Right.
blood, but I don't speak the language. And I actually came up
Sure.
with the lady's name, and she said, I can't believe this. She goes, and I tried to block you. So I felt very
Oh,
good
funny.
about that. But then I never forgot her
Yeah.
words about her trying so hard to tell me about Area 51. And I didn't bite then. I didn't understand. So
But it's
anyway,
funny that gifts fall in our lap like that you don't always realize what's going on, and there it is. It's amazing.
right,
It
right.
just it feels like magic in the world day after day is discovered, and then we just finally open our eyes and get to see it again for the first time.
I would love to
Yeah.
remember her name. I had it in a storage unit that my son cleaned out, but I think he threw things away he shouldn't have, and I've lost track of her. But
Bummer.
I so wanted to find Carolyn in Arizona, whose husband worked there, so I could thank her, because
Right.
I never forgot what she was trying to say. I just didn't figure it out until maybe 2015 or 16, somewhere in there. Well, no,
Oh,
actually, it was
wow.
about 2012 when I started seeing crafts again. I had seen
Right.
them a few times at different times, but that time it started then, and it hasn't quit since then. So, um, but yeah, she tried so hard, but she didn't want to spit it out on the phone, I think, and
No, and I
because
get
they
that.
could be
I know a
listening,
lot of people. Right.
Yeah,
It is still scary to talk about
yeah, it
certain
was
things.
sure was
And
then,
that's
back
my
in the
next
50s.
question. Sure. So when you were growing up, your dad knew about or found out about this guy. Let's go back to that for a second. So you were
Okay.
in Oregon
Hmm.
and you went to this location in Eugene. How open to the paranormal were your parents, your mom and your dad? Was it just your dad, or was your
It
mom
was
open
just my
also?
dad. It was just my dad. I
Okay.
bless him all the time for giving me that curiosity and the knowledge. My dad was one of those people addicted to not scandal sheets, Inquirer, those kind of magazines
Oh,
that you get at the grocery
sure.
store. And
Sure.
he would read something and he would share it with me all the time. And he would bring up things that my mother could care less. She watched soap operas and didn't. she, she could care
Sure.
less about anything going on around
Right.
her. Just leave my soap
R-
opera on.
Right.
But yeah, it was my dad's side. He had a lot of really good spiritual things he blessed me with, and I look at that now and I think it was him. It truly was on his side that I got these gifts. I feel so.
So can you think of a time, Kathleen, as a young lady when you kind of could say, I think I might be psychic? When did that happen for you? When did you acknowledge that?
It started, well, let me tell you something else that happened when I was 4, and then it'll kind of make a little more
Okay.
sense. I think
All
it's sort
right.
of like a little stepping I have to go through. When I was 4 also, and I remember this age because we left Alaska when I was 5, so I know about what time it was, and I have full memory of it. One night, I'm 4 years old and I'm in bed, and my parents, both of them, were musicians, so they were gone at night, and I'd have babysitters. And this one night, I got woken up by a terrible thunderstorm, thunder and lightning outside, and I was terrified. And I didn't know who the babysitter was. I was confused, and I didn't want to get up. It was dark, and just terrified. But I was sitting up, absolutely wide awake, sitting up. And I looked at my doorway, and there was a lady standing in my doorway that glowed. She had a glow in the darkness. I could see it, and she was beautiful. She had long red hair. She had this beautiful long cloak type thing on, and big green eyes. Oh my goodness, big green eyes. And she kind of floated in because I don't remember ever seeing her feet or seeing the movement, but she came in, and it was
Mm-hmm.
as if the lights were on, but they weren't, but because she glowed just that much that I could see things.
Wow.
So she came in and she sat on the bed beside me, and she took my hand and she said, "Why are you afraid?" And I said, "Well, the thunder and the lightning." And I was doing my little girl thing. And I realized that this
Right.
was telepathic, but I didn't know that until later. I didn't know
Ah,
about
sure.
telepathy at
Sure.
4. I didn't, but that's what was happening. And
Right.
she says, "Well, honey," well, she didn't say honey. She says, "Well, you're never alone." And she did a thing with her hand. And when she did, light hit real strong, so strong I couldn't see. I was totally blinded for a minute or second or two, or however long it takes for the eyes to adjust. And my room lit up. And in my room, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what she did, whether she opened all the dimensions and let me look in, or whether she took me in some other dimensions. I'm not sure because, I was very, very young. But in my room, every inch of airspace in my room, all around me, were different beings, hundreds of different beings. And there can't be hundreds of people or beings in a little room, you know what I mean?
Right.
And just a little bedroom,
Right.
but that's what it seemed like. And they were all together, little people that were 2 feet tall, that were adults, that I just fell in love looking at them.
Yeah.
Graves,
Right.
Sasquatch, mantis beings, and many other kinds of shapes that I was just fascinated. And I looked at all of them. I was just taking it all in, and they were smiling at me and sending me this love feeling. I was wrapped in love from this whole room.
Nice.
And she said, "See, you're never alone." And then she did another thing, and poof, it went away. Right. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my gosh, oh my gosh, those are my friends. Those people love me. Oh my goodness, and
Right. Yeah.
and then she got up and she floated away, and I felt like I had either an angel or a fairy godmother or something. I never could quite figure
Sure.
out what she was or who she was or how she glowed, but she was
Right.
beautiful. Sometimes I think of Chris Bledsoe and his experience with the lady that he met glowing like that.
Oh, sure.
And I kind of feel very connected to that, because that's exactly what I saw. A beautiful, beautiful lady that glowed. And
You're correct.
yeah. So anyway, so those 2 experiences when I was age 4 kind of marked the rest of my life. And
Clearly.
she did it. I feel she did it for a couple of reasons, but for one reason is those beings were going to be in my life, like when I'm on craft, when I was
Sure.
being abducted, and I have been, and I've seen them. I've seen the gray, and I've seen the same Sasquatch that I ran out the door to go see on craft. I literally saw the same one, and he smiled at me again, and that I just couldn't believe it. And in Native American, a lot of the tribes will say if you've seen them when you're very young, or you've seen them repeatedly or whatever, that they would be like your totem animal. And I was surprised, because that's what I feel. I truly feel I have a Sasquatch as a totem animal in my life, or a guide, sort of a guide in a way. And I love it. I just absolutely love it. And but many of those beings that she opened up to me were on craft when I was on being taken. And that's happened a few times in my life. It's happened up until 2022 or 2023. Actually, I had it, but I still have experiences on the earth without being taken as well. I do. I see them all the time, and I join in the CE5s, if you're familiar with those, and with some groups. And
I'm not.
Okay, CE5s is Stephen Greer's term for calling in ETs through the love of your heart, sort of, and prayer or meditation, whichever you would like to do. And we get groups together here in Florida, and we do meditation, and sometimes we'll play certain music, sometimes whatever music, some kind of beautiful music. They seem to like it very much. And Gary, one of the gentlemen that host a lot of these CE5s, has radios, and he has 3 radios that are all on the same frequency. But when the ETs come in, it might be one radio instead of the other 2, or it's so funny. And we can ask questions with the radios and they will respond. But when they respond, you would think all 3 radios being on the same frequency would all be bleeping or whatever they would do. But it's not like that. It's weird. It's very weird how they work the radios, which I don't do. I don't need the radios. When they're here, I feel them. Sometimes they'll tell me, look east, and I'll look east, and then they'll come, and so I'll tell somebody next to me, look east, they're coming.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have I've been doing that for many years, but with a group, the groups I've been with, we've had success over and over and over. So many different things. And one night that I was there, this is on 17 acres of land, so it's private, and just the people that are invited get to enjoy this. But this one night while I'm there, I felt something behind me, like right up behind me, like almost breathing down my neck. And I kept trying. It was dark because we're outside, in the dark with a little campfire, but not much, and I just, everywhere I walked, everywhere I went, I felt like this big thing was right behind me. And so I closed my eyes and I said, I got to see what this is if I can. And I felt through my third eye, I felt like it was a big red balloon, like a 4-foot round balloon, just floating behind me. That's what I kept feeling. And towards the end of the night, I just couldn't get over feeling this thing behind me. And so I took my phone up, and it was getting near the end of our session. Everybody was going to go home soon anyway. So I took 2 snapshots, like selfies, over my shoulder. And sure enough, there is a huge, big, red, round orb being. And it actually has a face. There's a bit of a face on it. I should have probably sent it to you earlier. But anyway, there was a big, red, round balloon orb being that was following me around all that night. It was amazing, that first it was amazing that I could see it in my mind's eye, and second that it just stayed with me. So they're with me, whether it's just interdimensional or whether it's from out there. I've had a little of both experiences, and but as far as psychicness, let's get back to that. You asked me when I was young, what kind of experiences. Well, when I was 9 years old, my mother had just bought us our first home, and she had divorced my dad and left him out west, and we came to Florida. And my mother had a break-in, and it scared her so bad that she put huge bolt locks, 3 of them on each door, front, 3 bolt locks on each door, front and back. And in Florida, they have these little 2-inch glass, they call them jalousie windows here. And there's a whole bunch of these little glass things, and you just kind of crank them open. In other words, you can't get through the window. They're just little glass. You can't get through these windows. You can't, unless you take them apart, that kind of thing. And anyway, I go to bed one night, and like I said, I'm 9 years old, and morning comes. All was well when I went to bed. Everything was great. I was in my bed, everything was good. But then I hear my mother unlocking the bolts and calling my name. Where are you? Where are you? Why aren't you in, where are you? And she's opening the door, and I sat up, and I realized I'm outside. I'm under an oak tree. I'm under the oak tree outside my bedroom window. And I looked down, and I realized my quilt that my grandmother made me was over me, and it was laid out perfectly like my bed was made. And I had my pillow. So somehow they took me, my blanket and my pillow, and I woke up outside. And I felt, when I sat up, I realized I felt good. And now a 9-year-old that feels good, why wouldn't I feel good? Or why would I even be aware that I felt so good? You know what I mean? So I don't know what went on. I really don't have full memories, but I have done QHHT to bring some of that to light. And but that's when I realized that whatever they did to me, they helped me with my psychic abilities. Because that same year I would get frustrated with my sister, and she'd want, during summer when we're home from school, she was a little bit older than me, and she'd want me to go do the dishes or take the trash out or whatever she'd want me to do. And sometimes I just wasn't wanting her to boss me around, and I would kind of cuss at her a little bit and run out the door and run down the street. And she'd never chase me because she was an indoor person and I was an outdoor person. And so I would run away, and then so she'd go watch TV or something. And then I would sneak back and I'd crawl on the roof. And while I was on the roof in Florida, we used to have small, puffy marshmallow type clouds, little puff balls in the sky. When I was before we got chemtrails or whatever we have that changed things. But what I found I would do is when I was mad at my sister, and I would do that, and I'd climb up on the roof, I would sit and I would pick out a cloud. If there was 3 together, I'd pick out the middle one. And I would just kind of focus my third eye, my energy somehow on this cloud. And I would just stare at it and focus all this energy on it. And I found that within 5 minutes, that cloud would disappear. It would dissipate. And the 2 other clouds would still be there. So I found that I had some kind of a gift where I could use that energy to dissipate a cloud. And then that was the beginning of some of my realizing that I had some kind of a different ability that others didn't have. And then when I'm much older, I read in a book that yogis can do that. They can
Oh, wow.
dissipate the clouds. So I learned that it's not just something I thought up. Evidently, it's a thing, you know.
Sure.
But I didn't know
Right.
that until I was 18 when I read that book, about that. But still, I did that, and it would release my anger on my sister, and then I'd go in the house and I'd do
Nice.
whatever she wanted. So, but yeah, so that's kind of where it really began, is after an abduction, of being taken, and unfortunately left outside under a tree. But but still, it wasn't so dangerous back then, I guess, and to wake up outside under a tree. But I wouldn't want to do it now. But anyway, so that was my
Sure.
first experience of being taken, and knowing it. I knew something very weird had happened. There's just no other way I could have gotten outside. And I did have bits and pieces of memory. Some things I remembered, but most of it came after I had hypnosis, and then Dr. Melanie Barton Bragg did my hypnosis, and she left it where the doors would keep opening even after the hypnosis was over. You know what I mean? That more and
Mhm.
more would keep coming to me, and it worked out that way. So more and more things keep becoming aware during my times that they have had me. And so under hypnosis, I found that I was laying on a table. I was not paralyzed. I was just laying there, maybe sleeping. I don't know, but I was on a table and in a craft. It was a circular craft. And I call him my gray because it's the same one that has come to me each time I've been on craft. Okay. So I don't have a name for him. We have telepathy
Okay.
together. We're like friends, or family. I don't know, how that works, but
Mhm.
we have telepathy, and it's always seems to be the same one, same look, same appearance, I don't know, same energy is what I kind of feel. And he was holding my hand, and I'm on this gurney, and I realized I could leave my body when I'm on craft. I could fly around. I could leave and look around. And so I kept popping out of my body and looking, investigating where was I and and he knew I was out of my body. He knew. And so I went up, and then I started to circle the room. And as I'm circling the room, down where my left foot would have been, there is my Sasquatch, the same one that I saw when I was 4 years old, or at least the same color, you know what I mean? Identical
Sure.
to that one. And I felt that
Right.
was my gray and my Sasquatch, those beings seemed to
Right.
be a part of my world. And he turned and he smiled at me. He was doing something with, I didn't know what computers, and I just remembered knobs and buttons and things and screens, but
Right.
we barely had color TV. You know what I mean? So I wasn't real
Sure.
familiar with
That's fair.
what he was doing. Yeah, I wasn't sure what he was doing, but anyway, he turned and he smiled at me, so I was just sure that was my Sasquatch, my man bear, as I always called him.
Right.
And so the gray said, "I need you back in your body, please." Okay, so I went back in my body. And they were I don't know what they were doing, to be honest. I have no clue. I've never had any pain or any fear, though, so that's always good. So
That's really good.
yeah, so I went back in my body, but then I said, "Oh, I got to go out again. I got to look some more." So I popped back out again, and I took off further around in this circular way I was going. And on my far left was a mantis being, a female. And she was in a long cloak, and she had her hands were funny. That's how I remembered so much, is the way her
Mhm.
hands were like this. And she had something
Mhm.
in one of her hands. To me, it looked like a notebook. But
Okay.
we didn't have tablets or things like that back then. But it just looked like she was making notes or something. But I felt like
Right.
she was in charge in some way, or an overseer. That's what I felt
Right.
like, even at 9. And so anyway, the gray said, "Please come back. We have to get this done." So okay, pop back in my body. And I asked him, I said, "Who is she?" And he said, one of the ancient ones. And that's what he told me. Now I don't know exactly what that meant. One of the ancient ones is what he told me. And I never
Mhm.
forgot that. And So anyway, I pop back in my body, and he has a rod, like a I don't know, it looked like a little metal rod to me, about this long, and he kind of ran
Mhm.
it, scanned my body with it. He kind of went down my body, and he did a couple times over my throat, back and forth. And then he scanned down. And when he got to my female area, he did a couple times with movement. And then he moved it,
Mhm.
all the way down. And then I was so relaxed, I went back to sleep, and I don't remember how I got under the oak tree, or, nothing else from that point. But
Right.
what I do remember, and this is where it gets a little bit freaky, but while I'm on the bed looking down on the floor, beside me, but about 3 feet away, not right next to me, but were two children. A little boy was up by where my head would be, and I could see his side view. He was about 4 years old, and I at 9 I was already babysitting, so I always loved kids and animals, and I was just pulled to this little boy, but I couldn't see his face.
Right.
He was sideways, and I couldn't see, and he didn't really move much, but he was in the room. And then I realized there was a little girl down by my feet, down at the bottom of the gurney, or whatever I was on. And I looked at her, and I went, "That's me." This little girl looked identical to what I looked like when I was about 2 or 3. She was around 2 or 3. Very
Right.
little girl. And she had white hair, just like I did when I was little. But she too was
Mhm.
sideways, and I could only see a little bit of her face. But I could tell that she looked just like me. And I thought to myself, just
Mhm.
before I went out, before I totally went out and don't remember anything else, I remember saying, "I'm too young to have kids. That can't be my kid. I wonder if that's one of my sisters."
Right.
I'm just thinking of a million things. How did this little girl, I mean, I'm 9 years old. I knew I couldn't have children, but
Right.
yet this child looked just like me. And I still don't know if that meant I was in the hybrid program, or was that a clone? Or,
Right.
what I mean? There's so many questions about that I've
Sure.
to this day, I don't have any idea, no idea. And I've been on craft a few times since then, but I've never seen her again, or the little boy. Now the little boy had darker hair, so I didn't connect, that he looked just like me, like I did with the little girl. But still, it just makes me wonder, why they wanted me to experience that, because they knew I saw her, and
Right.
I was about to leave my body to go around and see her face is what I was doing, but instead I went under, and I don't remember after that.
So
So
can
there's
I ask you a question about this?
sure.
So when you woke up outside your home, did you interact with your mom after that? Did she say, "What are you doing outside?" Or did you not? Did you go back in the house
She
and she didn't notice? Or
she was in a hurry to get to work, and she was trying to get us ready to go to school, and we never spoke of it. She didn't even
no,
ask me how I got outside. She didn't. It was
really?
so, I still I think back at some of these experiences, and I can't believe that she wasn't curious about how I got outside. I mean, I when I was older and I realized it happened, I'm like, I was curious. Why wouldn't she be curious? Plus be afraid, because we weren't that far from
Right.
big roads, heavy roads, and it's the front yard. And anyway, it was just, yeah, she never spoke of it. She just said, "Hurry up and get ready. We got to go," and then it was just forgotten,
Right.
but not by me, because of
Right.
mainly because of the way I felt good when I sat up. I just got this all
Sure.
over flush of a recharge, as if they put some kind of, I don't know, maybe they did some health work on me. I don't really know. I don't know,
Right.
but I just know
Now,
how
have
good I
you ever
felt.
had a past life regression?
I've had, through meditation, I've kind of had a bit, not a professional. I haven't went under for it, which I would like to. I very much would like to. I have had a couple memories, absolute memories, that have repeated themselves, of past lives. One in Egypt, and one as a young soldier boy, in a war, and I died on a battlefield face down. I vividly have memories of that. but I was young. I wasn't like 18 or older. So, and I don't know which war, I really don't. I just know it was a war. And I feel like it was not in America. I feel like it might've been overseas or something like that. But,
Okay.
so yeah. Yeah, I've had that kind of experience, and I would like to work on the past lives. I did have one psychic lady do a reading for me, and she saw that I died young, as with an illness, though. I think she told me, if I'm not mistaken, it was in England, and she gave me a lot of details about how I was a boy, and my family was sick, and I ended up alone, and then I was dying from whatever the sickness was. But
Right.
when she gave me the reading, I could feel it. I could kind of remember it, sort of. So
Sure.
yeah, I would like to investigate that more at some point. I would.
Well, when we're done with this interview, we'll have to talk about that some more, because that's
Okay.
something that I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Um,
Oh, good.
yeah. So I'm very curious now, from a young person, you've had contact with UFOs, aliens, and Bigfoot. What about ghosts? Have you had interactions with ghosts?
Yes, I have. I had, when I was 18, my girlfriend had gotten married, and her husband was a Marine, and he was getting ready to be deployed. And she rented a little house down the road from me where we grew up. She was my longtime friend. And I went down to go meet her husband before they took off. And in this house they rented, there was nothing in it except a Ouija board. I'm 18. We pulled out the Ouija board, and her husband went outside to work on the vehicle because, they had to drive to wherever next. And so he was working on the vehicle. She and I were playing with this Ouija board, and we got what we kept saying was just jibber jabber. We couldn't get anything to make sense. It was moving and it was giving us letters, but we didn't understand. So we wrote down what we were getting. And after maybe 30 minutes of getting nowhere, we just kind of decided, well, we're not getting anything. So we laid the paper on the table, and then she put the Ouija board away, and I went potty. And as I was going to the bathroom, her husband came in. And before I got totally out of the room, he picked up the piece of paper, and he was Cherokee, full-blooded Cherokee. And whatever we had jibber jabbered on this paper, he started crying. I mean, this is a grown man. He's in the Marines now, and he's crying. And I felt embarrassed, so I wanted to hurry up and get in the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom. She went over to find out what was going on. And
Right.
so I'm on the toilet while she's talking to him, and I look, and straight across from the toilet is a clawfoot bathtub, an old, really old bathtub. And I see a little baby, about a 2-year-old little girl in this bathtub, just a little bit of water in it. But it was as real as you and me. I mean, there was no see-through. There was no woo-woo. There was this little girl. I could have picked her up. You know what I mean? She was that solid.
Right.
And I'm on the toilet. I'm peeing, and I'm looking, and I see her, and she takes a deep breath. She turns blue, and she falls back, and she's dead. And I know she's dead. And I'm running out of the bathroom, pulling up my pants as I go. And I'm Sylvia, I just saw a ghost. Oh my God. And I told her what happened, and then I wouldn't go back in the house. And then she told me that the jibber jabber was a message from his grandmother who had just passed in Cherokee. So I didn't know. Wow. I never did find out exactly what was said or, what we wrote. Because I went home. I just said, I can't stay here anymore. I'm going home. And I just took off. And that was the last time I saw her for a long time. But we talked about it for years, though, about the experience. And so she went across the street to her grandmother's house, and she found out that there had been a 2-year-old baby that had died a couple years before in that house. I think she died of pneumonia, they said. Yeah. So I absolutely, like I said, that was my first ghost. Why it was a baby, I don't know, but that wasn't my only ghost, but that was my first one. And many years later, while I was with my mom for those 15 years, my mom was an American Legion Auxiliary Women's Department volunteer for 20 something years. And she signed me up because I would drive her. And then, so I became one. And for 17 years, I was also a volunteer. But anyway, I would drive her to these events, and sometimes there would be parties like, dance parties or Halloween parties or whatever at the center that we had our meetings at. And there were two gentlemen that were in wheelchairs at this place where we held it in Odessa, Florida. And I was usually the bartender because I didn't drink, and everybody, that wanted drinks needed somebody, and volunteers. So I was the bartender a lot of times. And so anyway, this one night it was a dance, and I saw the two gentlemen in the wheelchairs being kind of neglected, and I had already been a nurse, so I knew they needed some attention in some way. And so I would take their wheelchairs, I'd pull them out on the dance floor, and I would dance with them, out on the dance floor.
Nice.
And pull their wheelchairs around. Awesome. And one of the gentlemen was about 85, maybe, elderly, but he was retired military. And the other one was injured, lost his legs in the military, and he was about 45. And both of these gentlemen passed away within a couple months of each other for some reason. I don't know why the younger one went, but the older one was, of course, old. Anyway, I was home with my mother one day, and I had my son put cameras where we could see and hear my mother, but not be on her or near her because she smoked. Sure. And we didn't like that, none of us. So we had these cameras by my bed that I could see everything going on in the living room and still be in my own space. And so I was laying in bed reading a book, and I heard the front door open. And so I looked at the camera, and I saw my mother's head look at the door and then go back to her soap opera. And I'm scratching my head. I know that was the door, but nothing. And so then I'm back in my book, and then I feel eyes staring at me. And I put my book down, and I look at the foot of the bed, and there is this gorgeous man, about 30 years old, in full military attire, standing at attention in my bedroom, looking at me.
Oh, funny.
And I recognized him. It was the elderly gentleman, Carl.
Oh, funny.
Carl. I did not know this. My mother knew this, but I didn't know that Carl and his wife lived 2 doors down from my mother. I never knew that. I just would see them at the events. And he telepathically again, he said to me, "Where's Gloria?" And I instantly just said, "You need to go out the door, but don't scare Mama." That's what I told him.
Right.
Don't let Mama see you. Don't scare Mama.
Right.
I said, "Go out the door and go straight ahead of you and go 2 doors. Gloria is waiting for you," I told him. I don't know where those words came from, but that's what I told him. And
nice.
I believe, I can't really exactly for sure remember, but I swear I think he might have given me the salute, and then he kind of floated on out the door. And I'm in shock. I mean, I'm absolutely in shock because he was young and strong and healthy and at his best look. And I'm surprised at this. I mean, I'm taking all this processing in that, when you pass over, you don't have to stay 82. You can be 30 again, strong and healthy.
Right.
I mean, I'm absorbing all these things. And so anyway, I look at the camera because I'm trying to pull myself up to go tell my mother. And I look at the camera, and I hear the door open, and I see my mother's head look at the door again and go back, and the door closed. And then I get out of bed and I go in and I go, "Mom, I have to tell you something." She goes, "Well, you look pale." I said, "Yeah, I'm kind of pale." And I told her the story, and she said, "Oh my God." She said, "I heard the door. I heard the door twice." And I said, yeah, it was Carl. And I told her the story, and we decided to not go tell Gloria. It was too soon. To tell her.
That was wise.
I think so. But then after my mom passed, it was about a year later, we sold the house, and I never got a chance to tell her. But I wrote it out, and I put it on Facebook, the whole story. And an author who writes ghost stories, I can't think of her name right now, but she has True Ghost Stories, Volume 1 and 2. And my story, Carl and Gloria. It's such a beautiful love story in my heart. She wrote that article in it, so it got published somewhere out there. I haven't.
Oh, nice!
Book. Shame on me. Shame on me. I will. I keep saying I'm going to order that book. Yeah. So the story of Carl and Gloria. Is such a love story, so beautiful.
That's
And
awesome.
so that was another ghost, yes. So and then I found I don't have to see them visibly. I can hear them or feel them around me now,
Right.
over the years. Since then I've had we stayed at one time we stayed in out west at this old cowboy old hotel, really old, like 200
Mhm.
years old or something. And there was a
Sure.
drunk man ghost that kept me awake all night long because he wanted to talk. And I tried to help him go to the light, so to speak. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying to get him out of there to
Right.
shut up and quit keeping me awake. And he went on all night long. It was really funny. And he just finally, after I kept trying to get him to move on, he said, "Look, I lived my whole life here. I was happy here and I'm staying here." And then he
Yep.
let me go to sleep. So, but I always thought that was funny because my boyfriend was with me and he didn't see or feel, and I didn't even tell him about it until the next day. But so yeah, then I found I don't need to see them. I know I can see them in my mind's eye, so to speak, and know when
Right.
they're there. So yes, ghosts too. And then I found,
That's
since
wonderful.
over the years, I have telepathy with trees, with
Mhm.
plants, with a bee. I had one with a bee. And so anyway, I have the gift of telepathy, which is to me my biggest blessing out of all the things. Being psychic is great, but having telepathy is to me the number one, to me, my biggest gift. So
Well,
as a
it's
matter of fact,
amazing to be able to connect.
yeah, the Sasquatch lady told me, she says, we want to connect but with others, but we don't want to scare them. She says
Right.
there are different clans. There's lots of different clans. And she said, some are bad,
Right.
some are good, just like you humans. She was very,
Mhm.
very aware. She's very smart, very aware. And she said that. And anyway, since then I've had such full connection, with the Sasquatch beings that it's just been amazing. And I just feel so blessed with these gifts. But she did tell me, here's what I was going to say. She did tell me, do you think you could teach people telepathy? And I, out of my mouth, it just came out of my head, or it just came up as, all I can tell them is to shut up and listen. And she laughed about that. I said, I don't know how to teach that. But she laughed
Uh,
because I said, all I can do is tell them to shut up and listen.
that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
But that's
But
the
she did
toughest thing, is to shut our brains down just so we can
yes.
listen. It's tough.
Yes. Yeah,
It
that's
is
funny.
tough.
So she said, well, she let me know they want to connect again with humans, but doesn't want to scare them, doesn't want to be investigated, doesn't want to be hurt, harmed, or her children in danger, those kind of things. She let me know
Right.
that. So I've told a few people that have the right heart and do have gifts. I have told them where they were, and they went in to that forest, and they took one of their psychic friends, also a friend of mine, Phyllis Cesar, and they took her in there, and she got a name. She actually got a name, and it was very similar to what the lady tried to tell me her name was, but she tried to say it, and her voice was
Oh.
gurgly, and I didn't understand what she said, and I didn't want to be rude and say, well, say that again, so I let it go. I
Right.
thought, she's my friend now. I'll get it. I'll get the name eventually. I just I blew it off, and she came up
Right.
with something similar to Oriella. And that's kind of what I thought I heard her say. So I've been calling her Oriella, and I don't know if that's correct, but she accepts that as her name.
Nice.
So yeah,
That is
but
awesome.
she let me know
Wonderful.
that they wanted to connect, and as well as the other forest beings like fairies and all the other forest elementals. She told me they all want to reconnect, but they don't want to be captured. They don't want to be put in jars. They don't want to be studied.
Right.
Don't even want to be touched. They just want telepathy or some kind of interaction with humans. Again, like in the old days, is kind of the way they told me. So
Right.
I've been telling people that, so that hopefully it'll catch on and it'll get spread around, and maybe these people can have contact as well. So I get
That would be
interdimensional
awesome.
beings. I get outer dimensional beings, and one time I bilocated. I'll tell you this story. This is so funny. I was driving again with the boyfriend and the psychic gal in the back, and going down the road near Area 51. I'm not sure. I think it's Highway 40, but we turned off. We go off mostly off roads, not on the highways, because we like to investigate BLM land. And we did a lot of hiking, a lot of mountains and a lot of places. And we just went everywhere. Every weekend we would do this, especially when COVID hit. See, that was a good time to sneak out and get away in the mountains, which is what we did. So this one time we're near Area 51. I don't remember where we were coming from or going to, but we were right near it, and I saw a craft. It was a small singular round craft, and I saw it above it. I said to John, John, look, there's a UFO. And he looked up and he saw it, and Joanne's got her head out the window looking up, and I'm driving on the road and there's no other cars around, thank goodness. And I realized that I left my body and I went remote viewed or my spirit went into the craft. And I'm looking at a little man. He's little. He was like barely 5 feet tall, a thin man. And he had a really tight silver and baby blue suit of some sort. It was a whole body suit. And it came right around his face. All I could see was just this much of his face without the suit. And so I'm entering the craft, and he's got his back to me. And I realized, I think, oh my God, I'm on the craft. And at first I thought, did he take me? But then I see he's got his back to me. So, but he felt me there. So he was aware that I was there, and he turned around. And when he turned around, his mouth dropped open and mine dropped open because he could see me. And I didn't realize they could see that. Just like the gray could see I was out of my body. Right. But we don't understand that here yet, but maybe we will. Right. But he saw me, I saw him. We both, our mouths dropped open, and then he did something. He made a face like, she's got to go, she can't be here. And he kind of did something, and it blocked me, and I went zooming back into my body. And when I got back in my body, I realized I was driving like on autopilot, like I had bilocated. Half of me had went up there and half of me was still driving. And I kept thinking I could have killed somebody maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember being in the car. I remember being up there. So my boyfriend at the time, he kind of explained to me about bilocation and what I had done actually. But I had no control over it. It just happened. And that was like the first time it happened to me. And I was really fascinated with that. But it was so funny that the look on his face when he literally saw me, and I literally realized I'm in a craft, with him looking at me, and he knew I was there. So that was really wow. that was
That's really amazing.
Yes, it was.
Definitely. Well, you definitely have a lot of stories, Kathleen. I'm going to have you come back for a part 2 because you've got a ton of stories, and I would love to hear more of them. They are wonderful. Okay, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, do you have an email or something, or some way that people can reach you?
I do have an email. I am KathleenTedder9@gmail.com. And I am on Facebook under Kathleen Tedder, and I have 3 group sites on Facebook as well. One of them is a psychic paranormal site. It's called Merlin, but it's male and female, and the female comes first, and it starts with a G, Merlin, with a G for girl. It's a long story how that name came about, but it's pronounced Merlin. And so I have a Facebook site, and I'm on YouTube, but I don't have enough people yet to go live or get monetized just yet. But I do have a YouTube channel with a lot of my UFO sightings and videos and CE5, crafts and orbs and different things. I have a lot of that on YouTube. So I do have YouTube, and I'm on Instagram, but I don't do much with Instagram, but definitely Facebook. I'm there.
Okay.
And KathleenTedder9@gmail.com is my email address, and I do respond to people if they contact me.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today, and just hang back for just a second. I want to tell everybody listening and watching, as my dear friend Jay likes to say, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps get this content to other people that have similar interests. Thank you for staying with us today. We appreciate everyone. and commenting. It's been great to hear all these wonderful stories. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did. This is Holly from Holly's Pandorium, and Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you again